Of the thorniest issues between Israel and the Palestinians. And to talk a bit more about this, I'm joined in studio by Matshidiso Motsoeneng, a researcher at the Afro-Middle East Centre. Welcome. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for inviting me.
All right, so I want to start with looking quickly at what President Trump has said. He says that he's judged this course of action to be in the best interests of the United States of America and the pursuit of peace between Israel and the Palestinians. But the argument is, of course, that this will not result in peace between Israel and Palestine. So how do we interpret all of this?
Essentially, how we're going to interpret this is that the U.S. has certainly chosen a side, and that's the side of the Israelis. Okay. There's not much in what his decision contains that could certainly be seen as beneficial for Palestinians. This is certainly, indicates that there's no hope for, a Palestinian side that at least could see a part of Jerusalem as its capital. And certainly seeing the U.S. as an honest broker in this peace agreement is definitely something that's no longer a possibility. Yeah,
and I mean, we know the historical importance of Jerusalem, and it contains sacred sites to three of the major monastic faiths, Christianity, Judaism, Islam, and also its struggle, over its place in resolving peace in that region. So the significance of this issue to both sides. I mean, we saw in that piece now how excited Israelis were, yet the Palestinians are taking the opposite view of this.
Yes, I think what we must remember, firstly, is that this is more of a political issue than it is a religious issue. The recognition of Jerusalem as the capital of Israel certainly goes against many international violations, international law violations, and certainly UN security resolutions. And what this means, going forward, is that there is certainly no deal on the table that could essentially encapsulate both interests from both sides. And as you've said, the Israelis are celebrating, but the Christmas lights have been dimmed in Ramallah and other places, and the protests in Gaza essentially express the anger that is been fueled by this decision.
He also, Trump also said that the U.S. still supported a two-state solution to this issue. So if approved, would essentially see the creation of an independent Palestinian state living alongside Israel.
No. So, I mean, his interpretation of what a two-state solution, and I'm pretty sure what the interpretation of the Palestinians as a two-state solution is certainly in contradiction with this announcement. Okay. Firstly, the recognition of Jerusalem as the capital of Israel has in his statement has not factored in any way what a capital of Palestine could certainly look like in Jerusalem.
Okay, but then what's the alternative?
I think the alternative is certainly we're going to see, the Palestinian factions definitely have to go back to the drawing board and think about their strategies. I think this certainly also means, a lot of Palestinian political parties have certainly said that the U.S. cannot be seen as an honest broker or, playing any part in brokering a peace deal. And I think going forward is to essentially interrogate what the next plan is. I think Palestinians have always been known to resist, non-violently so, for a long time, and I think this represents, a sort of a wake-up call that there certainly needs to be a reconfiguration of the strategy going forward, and what this means for a two-state solution that for a long time, hasn't been discussed, and the possibilities of that emerging is certainly diminishing.
Hamas has said that they would call for a day of rage, and they said Trump's decision would open the doors of hell on U.S. interests. So, I mean, there could potentially be massively disastrous consequences.
Yeah. I think, yes, as you said, there's a possibility, but I don't think in the short-term effect this would certainly, spark, mass, protest or violence. And as I said, Palestinians have always been known to resist, and non-violently so. I think resistance is something that I think, in terms of human rights, they're legally allowed to do so, because this is an occupation of their own territories, and they certainly have the right to express themselves. Whether or not you'll see this as a wide, outcome of protests and violence taking place, I think it's certainly something that needs to be seen. There's already demonstrations in countries where, that host a large majority of Palestinians, Palestinian refugees, such as Lebanon and Jordan. And this certainly has lots of implications for the countries in which, host large numbers of Palestinian refugees worldwide. Yeah.
All right, we've run out of time. We have to leave it there, but we could talk about this for ages, I'm sure. Matshidiso Motsoeneng, a researcher at the Afro-Middle East Centre, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.